Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Knife and Tool Outdoor. Actually a review of the Kabar FIN fixed blade Tanto with the serrations. My first reaction when opening and seeing this knife is that its name is fitting. The fin, well actually it looks like a fin, as you can see. The knife has a curved handle of which has a guard on the bottom side at both the front and the back end of this blade. And this gives you a very secure grip on the knife. For comfort, Kabar has even included a raised hump on the back of the knife, which makes this feel more full in the hand. It feels very solid and sturdy. This knife, however, based on the design, I think my hand's a little bit on the large side. Okay, but I think that even with a smaller hand, this knife would fit well. I think that just the way that it's designed with the double, I don't know what you'd call it, I guess the double edge thing here, would allow it to fit in somebody's hand even much smaller than mine and still be an adequate grip. Though I think if a hand was any bigger than mine, they may have a little bit of trouble holding onto the knife. The handle does have hex screws which are removable, and what that allows for is it allows the operator to be able to remove the side panels on the grip and clean out any dirt or debris which may get in between the grip and the blade and ruin the knife over time. The handle itself, as you can see, is designed to look like fish scales. The fish scales kind of leave you with a very positive feeling grip in the handle. The downside of the grip, however, is that I found that when cutting materials such as like wood shavings off of a log for a fire, the handle can make your hand a little sore, I guess depending on how you hold it. There is a balance, however, because a more positive grip versus the comfort level, I guess there's sort of a trade-off. The more positive a grip you have, the less comfort level you may have with this type of grip. You may get more positive of a feel with like the rubber grip on a knife such as the Gerber LMF series knife. The Kabar FIN comes with a Kydex sheath which gives the operator some options when it comes to carrying and storing the knife. The sheath does have some holes in it so that a chain could be attached to it and allow you the option of neck carry as well as some lashing options to maybe lash the sheath onto a backpack or something along those lines. It also comes with a belt loop on the top which has a 360-degree pivoting snap. I find the belt loop and snap to be a bit in the way because every time I try to put the knife in I end up catching the blade on it slightly, and sometimes it kind of pinches in between there and then I have to yank it up, and I just find it to be kind of cumbersome. I do see people possibly wanting to remove this. It is riveted on, but the option does exist to remove this, and I think that without this, even without the belt loop, I think this still would be a quality sheath, and it's got a very positive retention to it. It's not coming out. So I think that is an option for some to remove that belt loop, so to speak. This knife has an overall length of 9 3/4 inches, and the blade length is actually 4 7/8 inches. The knife weighs just over half a pound, so it's a bit on the heavy side. Personally, I like the weight. It makes me feel like I'm using a tool and not using a toy, so to speak. The weight of the knife feels well balanced in the hand. This knife makes a great outdoor survival knife, and its full tang blade also has a pry bar or glass breaker, whatever you want to call it, on the pommel. And it should be noted, however, that this knife is probably too large, I think, for law enforcement carry. You can just see the size of it is rather rather unwieldy, and I think that it would be a difficult knife to conceal on a person very well. But it would have a great military application, I think. For those that carry a large amount of gear, or those that, for instance, like backpacking, you've got plenty of places to put this knife. And this isn't such a bad camp knife either. I wore this on my belt all weekend, this weekend, and I found that I hardly noticed it was there over time. I got used to it really quick. The blade itself is actually made out of a very hard steel called D2. D2 steel is designed to hold an edge very well, though it doesn't look so pretty. That's why more than likely the steel has been coated with what looks like almost a powder coating or something similar. The blade doesn't need to be sharpened frequently, which is kind of nice, but there is a trade-off with that. When you do need to sharpen this blade, it's going to take a long time to get yourself a good edge. But that's because of the hardness of the steel. It's going to be hard to sharpen it back to a point, but you won't have to do it often, which I think is a positive with this knife. So there is some trade-off to that. This blade sort of fits in the balance, I think, between a knife which requires frequent sharpening, which is on the softer end, and too hard of a knife which would promote chipping. I don't think it's quite at the level at which it would chip frequently, but I definitely would try to avoid contact with this blade with any type of steel or rocks or anything like that where you might possibly risk damaging your blade. I did have some time to take this knife out into the woods and test it, and I think it held up well. I ended up having to use this knife to make shavings and kindling for a fire that wouldn't start because it had just rained and there were a bunch of wet twigs and sticks in the woods. So I took some firewood that I had sitting underneath my truck, and I used this knife to cut some shavings off and try to strip some kindling pieces for the fire, and it worked out pretty well. As I said, it got a little rough in the hand, but that's something that we get used to, and I guess that just comes with the trade. I tried both the straight edge and the serrated portion of this knife for the purpose of cutting the wood, but I did not find one or the other to be better in particular. I did learn, however, that if I purchase a knife this size again, I probably will not get the serrated option. This is it's too short of a blade, I think, to be serrated. It kind of gets in the way. When you're trying to use the straight portion, you end up getting some of the serrated portion in the way. You try to use the serrated portion, you end up getting some of the straight portion. I would not recommend that anybody get a combo straight and serrated blade. I would either get one or the other with this length of a knife. This knife did cut into the wood well. I wouldn't recommend it for any heavy wood cutting applications, though. If you're going to do a lot of stripping, a lot of cutting into some heavy wood, I would recommend getting a longer, heavier knife for that purpose. But overall, I think it's a rugged, well-built knife and great for survival outdoor and even self-defense use. It is also designed for self-defense, and I think that it would be an adequate self-defense knife. This knife will be carried by myself for many years, camping and hiking, and I think it's a knife to be depended on. It does have 3 holes in the handle for lashing it onto an object such as a spear in a survival situation, or also just to connect something to the end of it like a lanyard or something like that if you wanted to. I think this knife is nice and sturdy. It's got a nice fat blade, which I like a lot, and I enjoy this knife a lot. I think that you will too. In the up and coming days, I'm going to try to get my hands on a Gerber LMF2 because I would like to run a comparison between this and the Gerber LMF, and also some Columbia River knife and tool knives. So stick around, and hopefully those will be coming soon.